Welcome to Find Myself Free, the podcast. I'm Ellie Young, alcohol-free life coach, mom, and athlete. I'm dedicated to helping others change their relationship to alcohol by sharing my journey of transformation. Fascinated by my own capacity for change after decades of gray area drinking, I'm passionate about sharing what I've learned from neuroscience and positive psychology to help you break free from the drinking cycle and unlock your true potential. Hear my personal stories of triumph and struggle as I navigate raising two boys, finding myself after 40, building a business, and doing it all alcohol free. From women's health and cycle syncing to fasting and biohacking, this podcast is your roadmap to a healthier, purpose filled life that starts with changing your relationship to alcohol. It's time to embrace change, find balance, and create the life you were meant for. Welcome to Find Myself Free. Hey, everybody. Before we get to the show, I wanted to invite you to check out my new free resource. It's called Breaking Up with Booze. Check out the link in my show notes. But essentially, this is just a free guide where I break down the two most common beliefs that are keeping women stuck in the drinking cycle. Now, I know what you need. You want to feel confident socializing alcohol-free. You want to be able to manage your stress, but without the crutch of alcohol. And ultimately, we all want to experience joy and connection without the hangover. So this is a completely free resource that you should check out, Breaking Up with Booze, because I know you are finally ready to level up your health. So check it out today. Head on over to my show notes and get the link. I hope to see you there. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Find Myself Free. I'm going live today with my podcast on week 2 of Sober October. We are actually heading into our second weekend. It is a Friday. And as always, I wanted to provide you with some tactics and strategies to help you get through this weekend and stay alcohol free, because it's always easier said than done. So maybe that first week you were pretty motivated and you were like, I got this, I can do this, right? But you were relying on willpower, right? And you got to the weekend and maybe you slipped up, and now you're hitting that second week and you're like, okay, no, I'm really going to do this, right? I'm going to make it through this weekend. But if nothing has changed in the way you think and feel about alcohol, if you're really still just relying on willpower and hoping that like you can continue to show up in these environments and not drink and really butt up against that big neurostructure in your brain that is the drinking structure, that is like, this is what we do in this environment, then you're missing this opportunity to actually confront that. So the 3 things that I'm going to be helping you with today that are really going to help to start planting some seeds of change in your brain are: 1, we are going to work on completely closing the door on the option to drink tonight, okay? We are going to firmly close it. We are not going to leave it open just a smidge where it allows your brain to kind of start waffling, where it starts to say like, well, I'm going to try not to drink tonight. If you leave it open just a smidge, you are basically just inviting that big, strong neurostructure in your brain to start exploring all the many avenues it has to try and drink, all the reasons, all the stories, all the narratives that it's going to keep pushing you. And basically, when your brain is fatigued at the end of the day, it defaults to the most familiar pattern, the drinking pattern. And so if we firmly shut the door on that, like make it absolutely not an option to drink tonight, you now open up all this brain space and you're like, okay, because I know I'm not going there, so I'm not going to entertain any conversations about that opportunity. It literally frees up all this brain space and all this energy and actually all this time for you to explore what else is possible, right? What else can I do? And this is really like a mindset shift game, because instead of, again, thinking about what you believe you're giving up on, what you're missing out on, right? All these thoughts that come up about alcohol that are like, oh, I can't have fun, I can't connect, I can't relax. We actually start to shift our brain into, what can I do? What is an option with me right now? And it's like a light goes off and you start, it's basically an exercise in gratitude, right? It's like, stop focusing on what you don't have and let's focus on what you have, which is endless opportunities to go and explore other things that you like, other people, other environments. For one, you can drive because you're not drinking, right? That is like straight up a superpower. I remember feeling so trapped, and I didn't even realize it at the time because I thought I was being, so good because I was like, "Well, I'm not gonna drive. I'm never gonna drink and drive, right?" And, of course, there's always Ubers and things like that, but the ability to be able to transport yourself any which way, it really expands your mind and expands the limits of what you're gonna possibly do that night. I used to always limit ourselves and be like, "Well, my husband and I both want to drink tonight. So, of course, we're not going to take the kids to this cool restaurant up in LA or a museum or, all these other places we could have gone outside of our little bubble because we both wanted to drink and we didn't want to drive. Right. And we also didn't want to put our small young children in the back of an Uber and be like, let's take an Uber because mom and dad want to drink. Um, so again, it limited our lives quite significantly, and the amount of adventure and the amount of like my expansion, I have expanded because I'm now considering all these other opportunities now because I'm not limited by the confines of alcohol, right? So that's the next strategy there is to like you're firmly closing the door on this possibility of drinking tonight, and then you're allowing your brain to run wild with possibilities about all the other things you can do. Now, if you're hitting a roadblock here, if you're like, oh, this is like a lot harder than I expected because I truly can't imagine doing things that don't involve alcohol, right? A lot of people run into this because our entire worlds are so wrapped up and embedded in the alcohol scene that we can't really picture an environment like that we wouldn't be drinking in, right? And so that that next step right there, if you're hitting some friction and you're hitting a lot of resistance in your body and you're like, I really don't know what to do if I'm not going to be drinking. I don't know where to go. I'm going to be so bored, and you might be bored. You're like, what else do I do? This next step then is to examine that and to get really, really curious about how much power you have handed over to a beverage. Really, really think about that. If you can't imagine how to have fun without alcohol, if you can't picture an activity, if you can't picture people you can go hang out with or, a place you can go, that doesn't involve alcohol. I want you to really get curious about just like how much of our lives and the possibility of our lives, right? Like I want to experience fun and joy and relaxation tonight, but if I can't drink this one substance in a glass, then I won't be able to have that. I won't be able to access that. That's really what those limiting beliefs have done to you, right? We have really allowed this substance in a glass that is a neurotoxin that has this effect on our brains to dictate whether or not we're going to have fun tonight, whether or not we're going to experience joy, whether or not you're going to be able to connect, let loose, relax, the joy de vie, right? We've turned it all over to a substance in a glass, saying, well, if I can't have it, I guess I'm just going to be bored and lonely and sad at home. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I hope the record is like screeching to a stop for a second for you. And you're having like some aha moments here because you're like, wait, that is pretty weird. Like, when did that change? I like to always take you back to your childhood because when we were kids, fun did not involve alcohol. There was just so many other things we wanted to be doing. And they usually involved like moving your body and running around and being wild and belly laughing. And, the joy was in all of that. It didn't come from a substance in a glass. And at some point, when we're really ripe with insecurities, as we're like teenagers or like early college, whenever that is for people, we start to turn it over to this thing like a party's not fun unless there's beer, and like who's going to get the alcohol because we can't come out of our shells and connect and enjoy ourselves unless this substance is involved. What a tricky little substance, right? When you really think about it, like what has that done to our brains? And of course, it's been going on for millions of years, right? Like this substance has been around, and it that begs examination as well because it's like, what is it actually doing to our brains? And that's a conversation around dopamine, right? We are essentially dopamine chasing individuals. Dopamine is how we survived back in the day, right? In the caveman periods, we would experience a flood of dopamine when we found something that allowed us to survive. So we're like hunter gatherers, right? We discover the berry bush that has berries that aren't going to poison us and make us sick, and they actually taste good and they give us energy, and our brain goes whoop, big burst of dopamine, and it goes, remember this bush. We want to remember how to get back to this bush. We want to pursue this type of berry when we see it, right? Same goes for hunting, right? Like, no wonder boys love to play video games and love to like pursue and like kill things and shoot guns, right? Because back in the day, when they were hunting and they needed to do it to survive, to feed their families because they hadn't eaten in however many days, and they went on a big hunt and they were able to kill the buffalo, right? That was like big rush of dopamine. And so again, our brains are built on dopamine and to seek it for survival. But the problem in today's world is that we are in a dopamine influx environment. There is just countless things that are flooding our brain at all time that we can just be like, hitting a button on our phone. The kids are now playing the games and they're getting like 100 kills a minute, right? In these video games. They're like dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. And the real world isn't as satisfying as all of this artificial stuff we're doing, the drugs, the alcohol, the processed food, the porn, right? So it's understanding how alcohol actually impacts your brain, and the fact that it's just a game of dopamine. It is just giving you this artificial boost of dopamine. Then the brain course corrects and says, whoop, you pushed too hard on that pleasure cycle. And so now we're going to deliver some dynorphin, which is going to course correct from that high of alcohol. It's just like a seesaw in your brain. So the more you push on the pleasure side with alcohol, the more the brain is going to deliver a low on the other side. What goes up must come down. And so that is the nature of an addictive substance. And so so we understand that it's having this impact on our brain, right? And so it's not you. When you get into these environments and you're like, God, a drink really sure sounds good. Like, what's wrong with me? It's like, oh, that's the lingering effect of what alcohol does to your brain. You're like, boy, a drink sure sounds good. That is craving in your brain, but it is conditioned into us in the environments we place ourselves in the narratives we tell ourselves about why we're drinking. We're always trying to romanticize it in some way, right? Granted, a lot of us drink for coping reasons, but then there's a big portion of the population that's really like, hey, I'm just drinking for fun. I'm drinking because I'm bored. I'm drinking to entertain myself, right? However you want to dress it up and with whatever narrative, at the end of the day, it's still a poison. It's affecting your brain the same way it's affecting the alcoholic's brain, right? It does the same thing. It gives the dopamine boost. And then there's this chase, this little seesaw roller coaster of neurochemistry in your brain, taking you up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down till eventually that depressant effect. Then your brain goes, whoop, adrenaline and cortisol. And then we are just riddled with it, right? And this effect lasts for days in your body. And of course, it's not like we're drinking once every 5 days. Most of us are drinking like every 3 days, then maybe take a break, and then like a couple more days here and there. So our bodies never really reset. We never really allow our neurochemistry to reset. And that is one of the best things that happens in an alcohol-free month is you actually give your brain and body enough time to achieve homeostasis again. And those days can be rocky. Most people, if you are doing Sober October, most people, and this was myself included a couple years ago when I did my dry January of 2021, I really only made it like that first 4 days, I think, of dry January. And then I ended up drinking on the weekends. And that's when I entered the moderation game. And I was like, I'm only going to drink, wine. I'm only going to have 2 drinks. And then I was just so consumed with counting my drinks and waiting until I drink and doing the like, will I drink? Won't I drink? Mental gymnastics. And it consumed all of my time. And it wasn't joyful. Right? At the end of the day, I was still just like chasing this substance, chasing a state of being that I thought I couldn't achieve unless I was drinking alcohol. And then I was like, well, I'm done. I've had my 2 drinks. I guess I won't get to enjoy myself anymore. And I would obsessively watch everyone else drinking and go, gosh, why can they drink and it's fine, right? Like I really put all this shame on myself that there was something wrong with me instead of understanding the substance and what it does to a human brain, right? And then we start to understand the mental piece of this, right? This is what I dig deep into in my Brave course. We really get to the foundation of where our attachment, where our dependency on alcohol lives. And we do it without any shame. We don't, and again, it's really, really hard to remove shame from the conversation with alcohol because most people assume that if you have to change your relationship to alcohol, something must be wrong. You know, you wouldn't voluntarily do this. You wouldn't step into this and go, I just want to not drink. Except that's exactly what I'm telling you to do. I'm telling you, you don't have to have crossed some imaginary threshold of like a bad drinker versus a not drinker. Most everybody lives in this gray area space where they're probably drinking too much, probably drinking more than they want to, and it's not having the effect that they want it to have. Granted, can alcohol actually have any positive effect on your body? No. All the studies are saying there's no healthy amount of alcohol. I get it. Like it's hard. People think I want people think I want to take away all their joy and take away all their fun. And that is exactly the opposite. I'm saying you can have all the joy, you can have all the fun, you can have even more because your brain isn't going to be dulled by a neurotoxin. You're no longer going to be hungover or riddled with anxiety and depression and all the other things that it does to shortchange your health, your hormonal health, your gut health, your mental health, your heart health, everything. It affects everything. And so we want to remove the shame. Wanting to eliminate the substance that has been conditioned into you, almost brainwash style, for you to just say, this is the best way to live your life is to drink this substance. This is how you connect. This is how you celebrate. You can't go to a wedding. You can't go to a football game and not drink, right? It's Friday night. What do you mean you're not going to have a couple drinks to wind down after the end of the work week, right? And so I want to help you like, whoa, like take the veil, take the blinders off and start to explore this. Like, how much power have we turned over to that substance, right? How much of our joy have we said, I can't access my joy unless I'm drinking this substance? Oof, that's a rough way to go in life, right? And so, how do we really start to get our brains to get to this place where we're like, I'm changing you. I'm going to change you. And it really, the work is done up here. This is where the biggest flex is in your mind. It isn't about showing up into the environment and expecting yourself not to drink, expecting willpower to take the wheel and for you to be disciplined enough, right? The same thing happens with diets, right? Like would you take yourself to a bakery and ice cream store, you know, night after night when you're trying to diet? No. But with alcohol, we are so surrounded by it. And then when we're trying not to drink and we wonder, why is this so hard? And it's like, well, you're continuing to put yourself in environments around people with the same subconscious messages, the same narrative going on that is telling you drinking's good, drinking's okay. You need it to relax. You need it to have joy. You need it to experience these things. And so that is the work of what it really means to get alcohol free. And the way that my coaching is so completely different than something like AA, my dog just moved my desk there, is that I fundamentally believe that there is nothing wrong with you. Yes, alcohol is an addictive substance. Yes, your brain might have a chemical dependency on it because that is essentially what an addictive substance does to a human brain. Given the right frequency and the right volume, anyone can become addicted, right? And again, I use these words very carefully because I really want to make sure we're not imposing any shame or blame on you when it comes to the word addiction, right? You can become addicted to a lot of things in your life, like, certain foods, certain pajamas, certain behaviors, certain things, right? And all that is, it's like these are comfort-seeking rituals. And if alcohol has become a comfort-seeking ritual for whatever reason it is, like mine, honestly, when I really, really be honest with myself and I look back, I have so much more compassion for who I was when I was a drinker. And it started completely benign, like everybody else. Nobody goes into their drinking relationship fearing that someday this will have a hold on them that impacts their life in such a way that they can't break free of it, and that they'll be drowning in shame and anxiety and depression because this substance is just plaguing them, right? Nobody goes into it like that, right? And again, even at the height of my drinking, you would not have been able to point a finger at me and say that. You wouldn't have been able to recognize anything about that because I kept everything so under wraps. I was so overachieving all the time. I worked out like a crazy lady. I took all the expensive supplements. I did hot yoga. I did Soul Cycle. I ran 5 miles every morning with a group of women. I was volunteering at school. I was running a business. I was managing my kids' soccer teams. Like superwoman to the max, but definitely, definitely in a gray area drinking struggle that nobody knew about but me, that nobody would have even whispered to me like, hey, maybe you're drinking too much, right? It was so allowed. It was so okay in my communities, in the world I lived in the roles I was playing for me to be a drinker. In fact, it was encouraged. It was encouraged more than it was discouraged. Not a single person would have told me no. And isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? Right? That's why there's so much judgment and so much shame on top of all of this because we're always trying to look at people and gauge what is too much. When do you have to stop? But this person over here, they don't have to stop. They're joyful. They're keeping their life together, right? But what's happening under the surface? Alcohol is still wrecking you. It is still wrecking your sleep. It is still wrecking your hormonal balance. It is still wrecking your mental health. So we have to allow some really pointed conversations about this to start opening your mind and start to go, wait a minute, maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be. Maybe Sober October isn't just like this marathon of willpower to try and get through and lose some weight and feel better, right? It's really explore what this substance does, explore what's happening culturally and how you've been conditioned to drink it and the craving thoughts that are coming up for you, right? So we're going to really try and get into these 3 tactics today because again, not drinking tonight starts first thing in the morning. It starts with the way you are setting yourself up. And right now, if you were listening to this in the morning or sometime, in the first part of your day, I want you to firmly close the door on that decision. I want you to not let decision-making fatigue be a factor tonight, right? So our brain is really going to try. It wants to put as many things on autopilot as possible so that it can save its energy for the things that it doesn't know how to do, right? For the new environments, right? That's why this is so challenging because the brain is like, hey, we know this drinking behavior. It's familiar. It's comfortable. But to be honest, that comfort zone is killing you, right? The comfort zone is killing you. We need to get out of that comfort zone and we need to create change, right? And it starts with firmly closing the door on the possibility of not drinking tonight. Sometimes I ask my clients when they're like, I can 100% tell when they're still waffling. When I use this concept of firmly closing the door, I can tell they're like, okay, I'm going to try. And I have to be really careful about not applying too much pressure, right? Because we don't want to get into that shame zone. I couldn't do it. Why couldn't I do it? I can tell when they're still leaving the door open. And it's because there's a little tiny piece of them that is still harboring this thought that but I want to drink. I want to drink. I get it. I totally get it. And so you actually have to get to the place where you don't want to drink. And what if I told you if you drink tonight, what if you were pregnant? What if you were taking some gnarly medicine that would, totally make you sick if you started to drink. And, so that's what we say. We literally go like, absolutely, just for tonight. We do it for one night. Say, I am not drinking tonight. I'm going to close this door firmly and completely. Boom. Now there's not 1,000 other decisions about moderating, about when to start drinking, about how much you're going to drink, about what substance you're going to drink. All of that is gone because you're like, nope, it's not even happening. I'm not even going down that path in my brain. And it frees you up, and you are now open to all these other possibilities. And that part's exciting. It's like, oh, what can I do? What will I do? What other ways can I reward myself? What other ways can I treat myself to some dopamine, right? There's all this trend on social media right now, your dopamine menu, right? And so it's like, there are so many ways to go and explore dopamine. And, a lot of people get into sugar. A lot of people get into caffeine when they're not drinking. I did this. I'm not going to lie. It's partly why I'm a hormone balancing coach now, because I definitely enjoyed a lot of sugar, a lot of carbs that first year of sobriety, because I was like, wow, I'm already doing this really hard thing of not drinking. I would let myself have dessert. I would let myself eat the pizza and the carbs and all the things. And then I had to reel that in and go, wow, look at that. Like, I transferred the reward of alcohol to a reward of food. And again, it wasn't great food. It was food that was, again, just kind of this artificial flood of dopamine in my system that would put me into craving mode and would ultimately make me not feel good. So again, getting really curious about this dopamine pursuit that our brain is after. It really wants to hit the easy button and like get that flood of dopamine with not a lot of work. And so another part of my course really is starting to dopamine stack. It's starting to create rituals, routines in your day that are like slowly, incrementally stacking dopamine. So not only do you not have all these lows, you're not on this roller coaster, you don't have these huge lows that are coming from some sort of artificial boosts like from alcohol. You actually are just much more even Steven. And then with your healthy little incremental dopamine stacks, your baseline starts to improve. Your baseline joy, your baseline pleasure in life starts to just get higher and higher and higher. And all the little things start to feel good again because you're no longer artificially blowing out your pleasure circuits with all sorts of things like alcohol, drugs, all the crazy sugars and things like that. So it's a process. This is a process. And it can feel like such a huge road ahead. I totally understand that. And so one of the tricks too that I would recommend for you is to always be measuring backwards. Always be measuring how far you've come. Even if you're listening to this podcast and you weren't a month ago, you've made progress because you are now taking in new information that is going to start to affect you on a subconscious level. If we think about how many years of social conditioning that we've had to drink this substance, you might only be a couple months in, maybe a couple weeks in to taking in new information that is counter to that. And your brain, it's like it doesn't want to take it in, right? This is confirmation bias. It wants to continue to filter in information that supports this idea that alcohol is okay. Like everybody does it. Isn't it okay? Like why is it a bad thing? Like isn't there a right amount? Isn't there like just a little bit amount or like certain occasions I should be able to drink alcohol, right? All of this stuff, is that your belief or has that been fed to you? Has that been conditioned into you? And so we start to poke holes in that and we start to take in new information. This is what I do for you in The Brave, you guys. The Brave is such an awesome course because it is the exact most important lessons that you need to hear that are going to slowly start to break down that brainwashing that alcohol is good for you, that alcohol is okay, that you need it to do all these things. It's going to slowly start chipping away at that. And it's going to help you rewrite your subconscious, rewrite new beliefs that are going to actually like serve you, that are like, oh, wait, when I think I need alcohol to relax, I crave it. When I start to get frustrated and annoyed at the end of my day, and I'm just like, oh my God, I want that drink. And then I go, wait a minute, that's right. I learned alcohol actually wrecks my neurochemistry. It's going to leave me feeling more anxious and more depressed. So you've created this little space now, this room for you to try a new behavior that's like, what else can I do? Because I'm going to shut the door on that behavior because that behavior is not serving me. I used to think it helped. It does not help. Now I know better. Now I know better. And it's not my fault. It's just the way my brain reacts to this stuff. Not just my brain. Nothing's wrong with me. All human brains, right? So it's like free yourself from that shame. Get curious. Start to explore it and go, wow, what else is there in this life than entertaining myself, than coping, than trying to connect, all hinging on this drink, right? I don't want to turn over any power in my life to something as silly as a beverage. Think about that. Like, really? Wow. And think about how much of your life, how many like adventures, vacations, weddings, special occasions, that all hinge on this substance to make it good. What are we really missing? I went to a class party for my kids last night. It was a class meet and greet. And to be honest, I still get social anxiety. You know what I've learned? Social anxiety is normal. It's okay to feel like we're taught that we're supposed to feel okay all the time. And if you don't feel good, and if you don't feel like okay, then you should do something about it. You should try and treat that. But you know what? Just sitting in that discomfort for a bit, you survive it. You're okay. Like anxiety is a normal part of life. It just means that you care about something. It just means that something matters to you, right? So you take some deep breaths, you identify the emotion in your body, like, oh, this is anxiety. I don't need to assign some gnarly meaning to it. I don't need to try and treat it with some alcohol. I just sit in it. And then I get comfortable and I start chatting to people and I actually feel so present because it's sober October and this is all so top of mind for me. And I'm at an event where I'm like, other people are drinking and it's a little awkward because it's like a parent meet and greet and we're like, you don't know everybody. And I'm watching all these other people drink and I see myself. But you know what I've noticed the most is that it's less about me. When I was drinking, I was so concerned about not even concerned about how I looked, but more like I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to talk. I wanted to say something funny. And it was just like me, 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 me. I was never really taking in the other people to the degree that I am now. And I don't think if you had pointed this out to me while I was drinking, I would have noticed it. But now that I'm so alcohol free and I'm so keyed in and I'm so aware and I'm so tuned in and I'm so present, I look in people's eyes. I give them space to talk. I ask questions that are more authentic. I connect with people better. I listen. I listen a whole lot better because I'm not just totally dulled down my brain to the point where I'm just like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to be funny and look at me, look at me." It's such a different experience and it's so much healthier, happier, being able to like connect with people on that level and to recognize that I'm not gonna be out of line because I'm drunk, There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I can actually just sit there and sit back, and I realize I don't have to say a lot. I can just listen. I don't have to be the center of attention. It's such a different experience. Um, I really am still blown away by how good it feels to be alcohol free, especially in those environments where everybody's drinking and you feel like, "Oh, this is a little different. I don't know anybody here." And then I get this opportunity to just connect on that level. And I'm like so grateful. I'm so grateful. And then I got to drive and go pick up my kid from his sports. Normally, however many years ago, I probably would have drove buzzed to his soccer practice and picked him up, not even thought twice about it, right? And I no longer even consider like that. It is just such a relief. It is such a gift moving forward to know that like I never have to allow that substance to have that much control or power over my life anymore. And I get to spread this message to you and I get to help you free yourself too from this because it has such a grip on our world. And it's not just you. It's the entire world. It is limiting your capacity, limiting your creativity for how to live your life, how to enjoy yourself, right? We think it all hinges on this drink. It doesn't. It doesn't. And the more you close the door on that decision and allow your brain to explore all the other possibilities for yourself, for joy, for connection, for peace. It's game changing, the best thing you can do for yourself. So I have to run now, but it's been awesome being here with you guys today in week 2 of Sober October. So again, here's the 3 things you can focus on for tonight. Close the door on that decision, free your mind, explore what else is possible. Sometimes that means changing your environment, changing the people you hang around, changing the content you're consuming. And 3, if that's really hard, if you're stuck there, I want you to explore, how does this drink in a glass have that much power over your life, your entertainment, your joy, your connection? Are you really turning it all over to a beverage? Is that how you want to live your life? Or is there other things you can be doing, right? Explore that. You will experience wild growth, transformational growth when you change your relationship to alcohol. And I'm here for you. Jump into my Brave program. It is not too late. You can start whenever you want. Sober October, we're 10 days in. And if you have been struggling your way through it or on the fence and you're just waiting for that nudge, waiting for that intuition to tip the scales of change for you, maybe this is it. Maybe this is your moment. What happens right now if you decide you're ready? No one ever feels ready, right? But they just commit anyways, right? No one ever feels confident that it's going to work, or they start looking at about all the reasons they can't do something. You just have to jump in and start changing your mind. That's what needs to change first. The rest will come, right? I am with you. You got this. And I hope to see you inside the Brave. Until next time, let's go. Hey, you've just listened to an episode of Find Myself Free. And if some part of this left you wanting more, if your curiosity has been piqued and your intuition is telling you, I'm ready for more, then check out my coaching offers at findmyselffree.com. I have the Brave course to help you break free from booze. And I designed this course with the exact lessons that led to my transformation. I also have the Balance Challenge for those ready to learn the art of cycle syncing to balance their hormones. If you're looking for additional support and to take either of these programs to the next level, I also offer one-on-one coaching. Now, I worked with a coach for 4 months at the start of my alcohol-free journey, and it made all the difference. Being able to talk to someone who knew what I was going through and could help me navigate my new world gave me a foundation of support I could build on. And it's a big reason why I'm a coach today. I want to help others find their freedom and level up their health. If this sounds good to you, connect with me at findmyselffree.com and set up a call. Listen to your intuition that is telling you you were meant for more. I am with you. You got this.